welcome everybody. My name is Zena Nicholas. I'm here with Lorna Evans as well. I'm not sure if she's pinned, but yeah, Lorna Evans here as well. So welcome to today. I'll introduce myself first. I'm Zena Nicholas. I'm a therapist myself. I'm also the founder of Counsellor Staff Room, which is a support group for therapists, and also the Counsellor Staff Room Therapists of Colour group, which is specifically for therapists and students of colour. In my own practice, I have a particular interest in working with people, neurodivergent people of colour, because I am one of them, and struggled in my own training and journey to find a therapist. I'm also really interested in all of Lorna's training, so I think it's something that's really been missing from a lot of core training. Sorry, I just thought I saw someone waiting to come in. And particularly this one, I love this one. It was completely new to me, Fascia. It's the second time I'm supporting for this particular topic. And that's, I am here in a support role. So I'll be in the background at the end of the chat, whether you want to write publicly or personally to me. If you have any questions, I can direct them to Lorna, or any questions you have, or anything, if anything that you might want to discuss that affects you, about anything that's been said in this training. So I'll be here in the background. And yeah, so that's enough about me. So I'd love to hear if you're willing and wanting to share, whether it's in the chat or if you want to just come off mute, just to introduce yourselves and say either what you do and your interest in this field. I know there's potentially people coming from the yoga world and the therapy world here. So yeah, it would be lovely to hear from you.
Okay, I'm Jackie. I'm a British School of yoga teacher, and like you, I have two dogs in the background, and I have my son home from university upstairs, so I totally sympathise with where you are this morning. I'm here basically to make sure that my yoga classes are much more inclusive, and I'm really, really interested in understanding how training on trauma can facilitate that.
Thank you.
I don't mind going. I'm Kerry. I'm a sexual violence counsellor in a rape crisis centre in Teesside. I've also got a dance, drama and physical therapy degree as well. And over the last year, especially through COVID, I've been looking at how to merge my two specialisms together, so therapy and dance movement. I'm working a lot with trauma and trauma in the body, and this is kind of one of the areas that I really like to incorporate in some of my practice. So trauma-informed yoga is right up my street, and really getting people who have experienced sexual violence or trauma to really kind of integrate themselves back into the body, as the body has previously been kind of unsafe for them, really. So I'm really really interested. So thank you for today.
Thank you.
Hi, I feel brave actually speaking like this, but anyway, I'm an art therapist currently working in primary schools, and I'm becoming increasingly curious about children's behaviour and seeing a lot of it as their unconscious way of regulating. And I want to learn about those big gross motor movements, if this is the right place, and how they're connecting with something on an instinctive level for them, and me understanding and being smarter about that. Does that make sense?
Very much so, thank you.
Hi. Hi, I'm Amy. I'm a psychotherapist based in Whitby, not too far down the coast from where Kerry is. I sort of specialise in trauma work and do a lot of work with women who've experienced sexual violence, rape, abuse, childhood sexual abuse. And yeah, I'm particularly interested in sort of bringing yoga more into my practice. I work already a lot with the body and movement. So yeah, this just sort of bringing the two things together really for me. I've been practicing yoga myself, not for that long really, maybe about 6 to 8 months now. So yeah, this is the next step.
Great, thank you, Amy.
Morning, everyone. I'm Duncan. I'm a counsellor based in Winchester. I don't know if I'm the only man here, but I'm quite used to that in yoga classes. So yeah, I'm a counsellor in private practice, and before that I was a yoga teacher, amongst other things. So yeah, I'm really interested in the mind-body connection and looking for ways to incorporate yoga into my practice and to be able to offer some maybe some routines and practices for my clients for them to do at home to sort of complement the work we do in our sessions. Morning.
Morning, thank you, Duncan.
Hello, this is Kotomi. I'm originally from Japan, but I'm living in Scotland, Edinburgh. So I am a holistic yoga teacher and also massage therapist and also Reiki healer as well. But I am interested in topics because me myself has a trauma sexually and emotionally, like physically abused in my past. Then when I had a training 3 years ago, yoga teacher training, one of the specific asana triggers me. Then the yoga teacher in the course, she studied trauma-informed yoga, and she's like treating prisoners, like prisoners yoga or something. Then she recommended like to learn the trauma-informed yoga because my experience and also in future student might help from this field. So I was so interested in to learn this today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kotomi, thank you.
Can I? I'm Lina. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm Lina from Macedonia. I'm a Gestalt therapist, and I'm practicing yoga. A few years ago, I started. Many years actually ago, I started, and I'm focused on body therapy with trauma clients. So I'm first time on this kind of event. So I want to learn more first for myself, and then maybe I can try something with my clients. So it's a double function for me and for them. So I'm happy because I'm part of this event.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm very interested in complex trauma, and when I did my training, psychotherapy training, did research about the effects of complex trauma on the therapist, the trainee therapist. And since then, I've worked with a lot of clients with multiple traumas. And my mother-in-law is a yoga teacher, and we often have conversations about the two things. So yeah, I'm interested to learn more about the body and movement and incorporating that into my work.
Thank you, Sarah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Louise. I am actually a primary school teacher based in Northern Ireland, and I am currently studying a diploma in trauma-informed schools and doing a master's alongside it. My dissertation is in trauma-informed schools. So once I saw this course online, I hopped at the chance to get onto it and learn a wee bit more and a few strategies to bring into the classroom for the kids.
Thank you, Louise. It's so reassuring to hear teachers are doing that as well. So needed. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm a person-centered counsellor, coach and supervisor, and have done yoga for many, many years, and I'm currently training as a teacher. A lot of my work as a therapist is focused on grief, and actually it was my grief work that led me to train as a teacher, because I just felt that, as we know, a lot of trauma, grief can't be expressed with words. It needs movement, and so that my teacher training has led me to here. So I feel really as if I've sort of landed somewhere really exciting. So I'm really full of anticipation for today. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you. That's really interesting. Just quickly, something that was quite stood out to me. I was raised in Britain, and I was in my 30s. It was the first time before I went to, it's when I lost my father, went to a funeral, a Muslim funeral. And there's a lot of movement in grief. There's patting and all of this. And it was really, actually, it was really difficult for me at the time because I hadn't seen it. It's, you know, we're not really exposed to other cultures that often in this country in that way. But it's amazing to start learning about actually the wisdom in a lot of these rituals. So we've had people say hi in the chat. Sorry, I thought yeah.
It's all right. I was just going to say hi. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Wendy. I'm from Southampton. I'm a newly qualified counsellor in transactional analysis. I work for a practice in Southampton along with some other counsellors of different modalities. And we do a lot of trauma work and complex trauma. I have a dance background, not so much yoga, but movement is really important to me too, and wondering how I can bring something different to some people, victims maybe as well, who have experienced trauma in Southampton.
Thank you, Wendy. So I think we've had quite a few people introducing themselves in the chat as well. Is there anybody else that would like to say anything before I pass over to Lorna? Apparently my dog, I don't know if you can hear that, has taken that invitation to start talking. Lorna, I think this might be a good time for me to mute actually and for you to introduce yourself.
Nina, thank you, and hi everybody. Hi, welcome. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask you if there's anything that you can do to feel more comfortable right now. Please do it. Whether you need to sit on the floor, open the window, put your lip balm on, get a cup of coffee, anything like that. And I'm going to be inviting you to do that throughout the session. Okay, so anything that you need to do to feel more comfortable, get a drink. I'll just have a little drink. Anything to feel more comfortable throughout the session. And I want to welcome you all. It's so wonderful for me to hear that there's a shared space, whether we're in movement, therapists, working holistically, yoga. There were always, and actually there still are in some spaces, they actually still are more like little planets away from each other. But actually when we've created this space, the groups are getting bigger and bigger. The interest is getting bigger. This workshop, we were only going to run it 2 years ago. I used to do it face-to-face before lockdown, and I was just going to run it twice, and it was in lockdown in Zena, and it just got more popular, and people keep asking for this workshop. So it's so wonderful to hear the experience that we have in the group as well. And also, if something comes to mind that you think would be interesting, it's not sort of, you're not being swotty or anything like that. We want to hear it. outside of this group, people may be less interested. So if you've got a book, if you've got a reference, if you've got a video, please put it in the chat, please, because we're all interested in this. Okay, so also I'm not wanting to sit in a position of being, I'm just slightly obsessed with this subject and have been for a very long time and will continue to, and it evolves. But I can hear there's going to be a lot of learning from the group today, and there already has been just in that opening section. So thank you for facilitating that very safely, Zena. Yeah, so we're going to do a bit of cross-pollination learning as well, because I'm not just sitting there with, I know all this stuff. It's about sharing as a community now. So welcome everybody, welcome. So we're just going to take a minute now just to arrive. So let's just take a minute's silence again, just taking a breath. You may want to, eyes open, eyes closed. You may prefer to be away from the camera or switch the camera off. It's up to you. So let's just take a minute now in silence just to arrive. Slowly, just letting go of that. Maybe wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Maybe feeling you may want to just feel the floor under you, the carpet, spine lengthening. Okay, so just arriving in the space. And I'd like you today to really notice and just check in with where you are right now. It's been a hot week. You may have been on holiday. You might have had a very relaxing week, or you may have been quite busy. So just noticing, do you feel hungry? Are you thirsty? Do you need the toilet? Where's your blood pressure? Are you hot? Have you got enough air? Just noticing, because it's a Saturday morning, right? It's your time. It's a Saturday morning. So what do you need? So just noticing your own energy. You may be tired. You may be fully alert. So just noticing that, and actually just taking a moment just to notice your breath. Just your breath now. Is it higher, lower, through the mouth, through the nose? No right and wrong. Just checking in with that for yourself. Just take the breath that you need now. And working with the body brings up a lot for everybody, and it also brings it up very fast. And we'll talk about that a lot more later. So it brings up a lot for everyone, and that is the clients or our students who, if we're teaching a yoga class, and our clients, and also for ourselves. So that was interesting, Sarah, you mentioned was it your master's or about the therapist in the trauma there? So we'll be talking, it's very important that we notice what's happening for ourselves when we're working with maybe multiple trauma clients, when everybody's talking about trauma. It's never been so popular, right? And there's a critical mass of that for us who are the people working with it. We can only carry so much. We can only carry so much trauma, death, grief. Kate, you're talking about death, grief, because it will manifest in our body. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, and also with the body, there's a lot of shame, anxiety. We may be triggered ourselves. So I'm just going to ask you to have some compassion for yourself and to keep yourself safe today, where that boundary may be, what you may need to do to keep safe and to step back, just to keep yourself safe. And just, if you could take a moment now just to think about, if something does come up for you in this workshop, who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to ring tonight? Who are you going to speak to next week? It may be a supervisor, it may be a friend. Yeah, just think about who that person may be that you can speak to about this. Okay, and the pace of this workshop is really bouncy. So there's so much information that I put into these workshops, and they're an introduction, but if you see them as threads, so if there's a thread that interests you, I'm going to encourage you to pick that thread up, learn more. I'll send you a reading list. I'll send you the video. I'll be giving you lots of bits to bounce off on, but there'll be something in that thread that is connected with you and how you're wanting to integrate that into your practice. So there's a lot there. And often our professional roles can really block our learning, because we're all here to help us professionally, but also I just want to acknowledge that there's a part of all of us where this is about us, and that we're interested in this for a reason. We would have all experienced some sort of somatic healing, something where something felt good, or we wouldn't be interested in learning more about it and wanting to teach more people about that. Okay, so and there you've got the mind-body split. So sometimes you may notice yourself being really thinky, and I'm more than likely going to be encouraging you to be a bit more letting go of that, okay, and be human. And I'm going to encourage you as well to allow clients or students, or if you've been working with someone, examples, if you're a therapist or a massage therapist or working holistically, if an experience comes to mind with a client that you may want to share with the group, but if I could ask you to maybe change the name, you might even change the gender, but just in terms of confidentiality, it's really important. And a very important angle to mention with the body is that, first of all, it's not for everybody. It's not safe for everybody. It's not for everybody. So to please hold that in mind, that this must not be force-fed to anybody. And because the body can, especially with trauma, it's probably the most unsafe place people can be. And you would have seen this in your own work. So it's not for everybody. And also very often we need to work with the medical profession here. So if you're working with clients, or again, I'm thinking as a yoga teacher where you might refer people to, if you're working as a holistic therapist, where you're going to refer people to. So you actually have a little list where you say, oh, you go and see this therapist, or you go and encourage people to go and talk to their GP, because the body's complicated, this work is complex, and we very often need medical intervention. So for example, with chronic pain, back pain, yeah, we know it's a manifestation of trauma, yeah, and we sometimes, we very often need to have a GP working in sort of co-piloting with us, with the client, yes, so that the client is getting their bloods checked, that we have checked for thyroid, that for diabetes, for often a lot of times awareness around neurodiversity, ADHD, autism, long COVID, anxiety. Are people crashing because they've come off antidepressants? Do they actually need to go on antidepressants? Just so we've got some the medical window is open. It's very, very important, very important. So I'm just going to do a little share here, which I'll be jumping out of throughout the workshop. So here we go. Welcome everyone. I don't know when it's silence. Great. So a little bit around keeping safe. And again, this is super important for us today. And that we are all part in creating a positive, inclusive space on this training, and that we model that behaviour. And when working with others in the breakout groups, that we treat each other respectfully, being really mindful of time, because obviously we're cramming a lot into time. So in a very loving and respectful way, if somebody's banging on a bit, permission to just say, oh, look, we've only got, if it's 10 minutes, we've only got 3 minutes each, you know, so in a lovely way, you know, Lorna did say, or yeah, if someone's banging on, just, you know, pull them back in, and everybody else needs to eat as well. Also, the information in this workshop is confidential and not to be shared outside of this training. And this is a lifelong agreement. And I'm going to ask you all to practice good self-care and only share what is appropriate. So to really hold your own boundary and step away from any oversharing that may be personal or about clients, because it's a Saturday and just so you feel supported and you're going to feel safe and held through the rest of the day. Also, I'm going to ask you to just notice and have awareness of your own trauma history and why you do the work you do, and to keep yourself safe today around that. We all have this, otherwise we wouldn't be doing the work. We wouldn't be here. So just have some awareness of that. And there's no need for you to please me. So if you want to put the camera off, you put the camera off, you go to the toilet, you make a cup of coffee. You don't have to please Zena. This is your time and it's a Saturday, okay? And I would ask that you treat Zena, myself, other people in the group with respect. So thank you for that. So I'll give you a little bit about me. So my name is Lorna Evans and I'm actually in the northeast. I'm near Newcastle, near a place called Hexham, in a little village called Corbridge. That's where I live. And I'm an accredited psychotherapist with UKCP. And I'm very interested in body stuff because before I was a psychotherapist, I was a yoga teacher and I still am, but it's the same path that I am on. And so I started doing yoga, and yoga is my friend. It's part of my life. It's who I am. I often don't recognize a lot of the yoga stuff that exists in media and social media or in videos. I sometimes don't recognize that as the thing that's in me. And I now teach trauma sensitive yoga. I work with some amazing people, and I'm really happy you're all here because I'm going to be encouraging you to start this movement with people, to bring it into your groups, because you will learn more from your students than you will from me or anyone here. Okay, so I work with amazing people with the NHS through the Recovery College. I work with the charity Changing Lives, so there's a lot of drugs and alcohol here. I'm starting to work with veterans as well. I put a lot of this stuff on YouTube, so I'll shamelessly ask you to like my YouTube channel. Shameless on that because I love a subscriber. It's you don't get anything for it. It's like Candy Crush to me, just seeing these numbers go up. And I train people. I work with Metanoia, FISIS in Scotland, Wimbledon Guild, British Association of Art Therapists. So basically people who connect with my work. A lot of people have been on these workshops and think, oh, maybe we can create something with Lorna. So I'm always up for that. I do a lot of press promoting that young people access therapy. Yeah. And also my background is more creative, working in video games, as a producer and technology. I also am neurodiverse, so a lot of my stuff's more visual and sonic, and I attract a lot of my clients are neurodiverse or LGBTQ clients. It's people who feel different, which I think we'll all relate to. And the aim of today is, within the time we've got, for you to be a bit more informed about trauma in your work, right? Whether you're teaching a yoga class, whether you are working one-to-one with someone in therapy and starting to integrate that, whether you are a holistic therapist, you're going to be more informed about trauma and how you can integrate that. So I'm asking for you to get curious how you can integrate this, okay, the knowledge here. So we've got 3 areas that we're going to be discussing. So we're going to look at who is it for. It's very important. Who is it for? This trauma-informed yoga, trauma-informed, who is it for and what is it? We're then going to look at some of the language and the tools for healing. And then we're going to look at some neuroscience, bit about the autonomic nervous system and therapeutic goals. Yeah, lots of space for questions. Please put questions in the chat. There'll be questions at the end. Zena's very good at sort of coming in and bringing the questions in so they sort of fit within the flow of the workshop as well. Love, we've got cats and dogs in. Love it. Bring them in. Duncan, what's the cat called, Duncan? Can't hear you. You'll have to type it in the thing. I'll say, bring the
She's
pet.
called Willow.
Willow, lovely. Right, great. So Willow's with us as well. Very good for the nervous system, having the cats and dogs there. Okay, great. So what is trauma-informed yoga and who's it for? So let's just, I'm going to ask you right now, I'm going to stop the share. Stop the share, and I'm going to ask you to just make yourself comfortable and get your feet on the floor. So feet on the floor, maybe hip width to the floor, really feeling the carpet. I've got a carpet, you might have a rug, and sitting right on the edge of your seat. And just for a moment, notice your spine lengthening. Spine lengthening. And if you like, you may want to put the camera off if that feels a different energy for you, or you can keep it on, that's your choice, or you may want to move away. Because even if you look away, you'll notice the energy feels different. Okay, so feet on the floor, just gently beginning to roll the shoulders. So you're welcome to just take the shoulders in any direction you choose, you decide. Just maybe notice by taking one shoulder round, maybe dropping the head to the side, that you may begin to notice a lengthening at the side of the neck and maybe some tension. Just be curious about that. And then I'd invite you to try that on the other side. And does it feel different on the other side? Just be curious and focus on the neck, the shoulder area. And then slowly coming back to neutral. Again, taking your awareness to your feet. You might want to give your feet a wiggle, get the heels tapping in the floor. Can you notice where you're sitting on the chair? Take the weight from one side to the other. And I'm going to invite you here to lean a little bit forward, a little bit back. Just be curious where the middle is. Where's the middle? And if you like, and when you're ready, gently dropping the chin to the chest. So again, maybe noticing a lengthening at the back of the neck, chin to the chest. And if you like, and when you're ready, we're going to gently bring the chin up to one shoulder. Noticing any clicks and pops. It might feel a little bit tight. Just noticing that. You'll notice this, it might feel like an edge. So we don't want to go beyond that edge. Now bring the chin down. And let's go off to the other side. Oh, a few more clicks and pops. Does it feel different? And you're welcome to just repeat this, taking the chin down and up to the other side. And you may notice, just experience, does one side feel different to the other? Maybe able to go a little bit higher, one side than the other. Excellent. Just letting that go. Again, just give the feet a little wiggle on the floor. Notice the floor, how you're seated. You may want to take a breath here and notice your spine lengthening, shoulders widening. And I'm going to ask you just to take your hands onto your knees or towards your knees. I'm on a higher seat, so I can't quite get a hold of the knees. And we're this time going to drop the chin to the chest and arch the spine back. Arch the spine back, just slowly arching the spine. And then if you like, and when you're ready, just taking the gaze up. Taking the gaze up. So gaze to the ceiling. So you may want to breathe here. You may want to inhale. And slowly exhale, arching the spine. So again, let's just notice what's going on with the spine here, that stiffness. It's the morning. Even if you've been doing yoga for 100 years, you wake up with a stiff back. That's why we do it. So to take the gaze up and feel free to bring the chin to the chest again. Again, just noticing that lengthening of the spine, the stiffness. And it'll slowly start to soften. So taking the gaze up again, I'd invite you to feel free to maybe take a breath here. Through the nose or the mouth, you choose, you decide. And then arching the spine back. You may want to exhale here. Pull the belly button to the spine. And one more time. Notice the lengthening at the front of the neck this time. Shoulders may want to roll back and pull it back. Great. Excellent. So coming back to neutral, just giving the arms a bit of a shake, just noticing one, maybe even with the hands, try flipping it in the other direction. Just notice, does it feel a bit different on one side or the other? Brilliant. And now getting your hand and placing it on the seat, we're going to, with the other hand, we're going to really maybe take the feet a little wider. So we want to be feeling steady. We're not on a tightrope. We're not doing what they do on Instagram, any of this jazz. We are feet a little wider. Can we feel steady? Feet flat on the floor, sitting on the edge of the seat. You may choose to pull the belly button in, spine lengthens. Let's take that arm over. So noticing that stretch, that lengthening in the ribs, side ribs, and floating that back. Okay, so let's try that on the other side. So feel free to maybe inhale here. Just get curious about that. Do you want to stretch a bit more here? Do you want to back off? Just notice what happens if you back off. Sometimes there's a voice saying, come on, we've got to get it done, got to make it perfect. So I'm going to invite you to just get curious and repeat that. So we'll do this one more time. Noticing the hip on the seat, the lengthening in the side ribs. Does it feel good on one side and the other? So you choose, you decide. Great. And then bringing the hands together at the heart. And if you like, and when you're ready, we're going to inhale, take the arms out wide. Gaze, depending on your neck, can be up. And you may want to, you can't see it on this, but you may want to put some circles in your wrists. That's your choice, just whatever feels right for you right now. Might be some clicks and pops. And then slowly, can we slow down the hands coming together and watching them sort of land like two planes coming to land in the middle. So you may notice the temperature of your hands when they land together. So we'll do this 2 more times. So we're going to stretch out and you experiment with what feels good for you. You may want to put some circles in your wrists, roll your shoulders, squeeze the shoulder blades together, chin up. And then slowly, when you're ready, just see if you can notice the hands coming to land back together. And can you notice the point where the hands come in contact with each other? And sometimes we notice and sometimes we don't, and that's okay. And then feel your feet on the floor, even tap your heels on the floor, toes on the floor. The spine lengthens, hands pushing into each other. And we do this 1 more time. Inhale. Gaze up. You may want to take it a little higher to feel a lengthening on the throat area. And when you're ready, bringing the hands back together. Okay. And then with one hand, I'm going to ask you just to get a hold of the other knee or touch the other knee. Like I say, I'm higher up, so I'm just getting a hold of the thigh a bit. So sitting right on the edge of the seat, lengthen the spine. Take the other arm behind and get a hold of the chair. We're just going to gently inhale, may lengthen the spine and gently beginning to twist off from around the belly button area. So letting the gaze be down. So you may want to inhale. Just that feeling. Just notice the feel at the back of the shoulder, side ribs, hips, abdomen. And feel free to do this on the other side in your own time. So the hand on the other side. And noticing the feet on the floor where you're seated. Just gently twisting off at your own pace. Again, taking your attention to any tension, stiffness, maybe it's in the neck. Can you notice an edge? Where is your edge? Can we back off from that edge? Okay, so slowly coming back to neutral. Really noticing the floor, tapping the heels, wiggling the toes, wiggling the fingers. I'm going to invite you to roll the shoulders Eyes open or closed, just notice the spine lengthening. Just take a moment just to let go of that practice and come back in the space, and just whatever you need to feel more comfortable right now, do that. Whether you need a drink, have a little wiggle, have a little move, do that. We'll jump back into this. Great. So you've just done a bit of trauma-informed yoga, and we'll break it down onto why it's different as we go through the day. So when we talk about the body in therapy, like I say, there has never been, and I'm so glad that we're on this wave, right? That when we're talking about the body in therapy, it has never, the wave has never been so big, but there's a big history of that wave and where that's come from. So there's also a lot of words that, let me tell you why it is so popular as well. It is because, and why it's crossing over more into science, and how we can speak about this in therapy, how the NHS will now fund your work, my work, and we can bring this into the spaces, is because of the book, Bezel's book, and I'm sure you're all aware of this. And what's wonderful is, years ago, people didn't know about the book. Then people know about the book. Then all the therapists know. Then I'd go into yoga studios when I've been in London, not up here, and it's in the yoga studios in London, yeah, because what Bezel has done, he's brought some science in, because historically the book, and the only book that existed on yoga and psychotherapy was this one. The Dog Did Eat the Front Cover, nightmare, right? But it's like old, and I don't know, can you see the back of it? You know, you've got a man who was born in America, in California, called Alan, who's now called Swami Ajaya, and it just looks a bit hocus pocus, you know, especially at the time. However, what Bezel has done, and Bezel's basically a big hippie. If you've ever watched any of his videos, he's doing yoga and qigong and all of this. So that's why he's bringing it in. So he's popped a lot of bubbles for us, and especially in my work, I don't think scientifically people wouldn't be that interested if we didn't have this, because we've got some science. Okay, lots of words being bandied about that you would have heard about. Is it somatic? Are we bioenergetic? Are we embodied? You can sort of charge different prices, I think, as I'm going along here. If you do somatic yoga therapy, bioenergetic, there's a different price point. So I just want to sort of flatten things out for us to avoid any splitting, or that what I do is different from what someone else does. So, you know, body psychotherapy, we all have bodies. We are here, we have a common interest. So let's avoid any hierarchy here. And also it can be quite controversial when we talk about energy. And again, there's a crossover here with the different therapies that we do. But when we're talking today, I'd like you to hold in mind energy. So an energy can be high or low. Low, the lowest of the low is a deadness, and high is the high anxiety, the fight flight. Okay, so this can manifest, and I'd like you just to notice who comes to mind in terms of pace, gestures, sitting forward, sitting back, not showing up, start, stop, how people speak, how people breathe, what their posture is. Okay, and often we see this in our work and people speak about this. What I find interesting is that people speak about it not because they've read the book, but our clients regularly will talk about that they feel like there's a deadness, that they're frozen. If other words come to you, please put them in the chat, that there's a numbness, or they're using metaphors around this. So what I'm highlighting here is that working with the body is not a magic alchemy, right? There are layers of work. There is not a quick fix, which can often, and I've seen being sold in, it is, we have to keep people safe, right? But there's not a quick fix where the alchemy will come and then the trauma's gone. Okay, so it's layers of work, and trauma is always complicated. Okay. So what is it? What is it when the trauma-informed yoga? Well, it started again with Bezel, and Bezel he doesn't work there anymore. They all fell out. This is what happens with anything. It happens with hairdressers, but in psychotherapy, people, there'll be groups of people and then they all fall out. It's usually to do with ego and money from what this is going back to Freud. They all get, and then, you know, he says this or he gets in the paper and then they all fall out. So, okay, so what happened was Bezel wrote this book and then got famous. And he has a trauma center. I worked at the trauma center in Boston, Massachusetts in the States. So he had a yoga teacher. This guy came in, lovely guy, and they began working together, and they were working with veterans. And David Emerson, so I'll recommend these books to you. He ended up writing a book through his work with the center, with Bezel Center, called Overcoming Trauma Through Yoga, Reclaiming Your Body. If you're a yoga teacher, get this book. His second book was called, which is for therapists, is Trauma Sensitive Yoga in Therapy, Bringing the Body into Treatment. Okay, really good. If you're a yoga teacher, that one. If you're a therapist, that one. Same stuff in both of them, just a different mix-up. So how it works in America, as I'm sure a lot of you know, is you need the diagnosis, that ticks the box, that activates the insurance, the money, yeah. So what in Bezel Center, how they designed it, the trauma sensitive yoga was for complex trauma and developmental trauma or treatment resistant PTSD. So in the States, there's this book, if you're therapists, you'll know about this book, the DSM-5. So if you tick the boxes that you have all these symptoms, that then generates the insurance, which means Bezel and David, they all get paid. Okay, so that's where it's coming from in the States. And again, that work was to do with initially with veterans. And if you read The Body Keeps the Score, there's some great examples of his work with veterans. Also randomly, I'm just going to say it's Armed Forces Day today. I'm working with some veterans at the minute. So I just wanted to name that how it's in our work, it's in our life now. This stuff's real and we don't know who's coming in, where they've been in our work, and we have to be mindful of that. So treatment resistant PTSD, that was to get the funding. However, the method is something that we have to bring in a little bit wider with the trauma informed yoga. So I just want to share this video of Bezel with you now. So you might need to put your sound up, but let's meet Bezel early doors.
The greatest frustrations that I see in the tens of thousands of clinicians who I train around the world in the treatment of traumatized people is that their patients keep getting stuck. They getting stuck in having too many feelings, by being overwhelmed by fear and feeling shut down and unable to engage. So the great challenge in treating traumatized people is to help them to be focused and to be present in the here and now. And talking alone generally does not do that. And so what is necessary for us is to begin to explore how people can become still and focused and be present in the here and now. And there, a major avenue was learning about yoga and learning about traditions that are not Western traditions, not part of Western psychological traditions, but traditions that have been practiced in China and India and in Africa for thousands of years. And those are practices that have to do with, one, interoception, noticing yourself, feeling yourself, and learning how to quiet yourself down through movement like Tai Chi, through breath as you find in yoga, and through movements that help your body to calm down and to come into the present. So people may start taking a yoga class, and initially when they have any feelings at all, they become so freaked out by those feelings that they need to cut themselves with razor blades to make those feelings go away. And now they take a yoga class. And the yoga teacher says, notice your leg, notice your butt, notice your abdomen when you make that twist. And the calm voice of the yoga teacher and the quiet encouragement to just focus, to not dissociate, and the guided voice, the guided power of breathing, to just feel what you're feeling and to notice that your feelings are there and keep changing. And when you focus on your toe, you have a different feeling than when you focus on your knee, which is a different focus than when you feel on your butt. You become aware of what actually goes on in your body. And the next time when somebody doesn't say good morning to you, or you are working very hard, you don't get overwhelmed by your feelings. You notice what goes on in your body. And instead of cutting yourself, you may take some time to breathe and to notice what's going on and to restore that inner sense of calm without popping a pill, without taking a drug, or without mutilating yourself. But that's a function of learning to trust yourself and to know yourself. But that can only be done if you practice and do it regularly with the guidance of somebody who trusts that you can eventually establish that sense of ownership over your own body. Try to imagine how yoga might impact your practice.
Okay. So that was Bezel. And if you're interested in Bezel, if you've not heard of him before, have a look on YouTube. Yeah, he's really been part of this wave. And also he's met with quite a lot of conflict as well in his work. I've just mentioned that before, that the people fell out with him. And, you know, I'm all for people sort of challenging, because that's what I'm doing really as well. So, yeah, otherwise, God knows what a state would be in. So, yeah, he's sort of challenged psychotherapy, he's challenging lots of spaces. So I want to just say a little bit more about trauma in the body, because it is such, and I'm really happy, you know, you've got Lady Gaga talking about trauma. Who else famous? You please put it in the chat. You know, other people, Lady Gaga, Ariana Grande, getting EMDR, I don't know, Mel B, you know, who else? I'm trying to think of someone male here who is talking about trauma. Recently, the Wim Hof on BBC, you know, the Wim Hof breathing. I'm sure you're all aware of this. And you've got, I just watched a little bit of it with Gabby Yoris and the sports people talking about trauma and death. And so this is why it's great to hear the work you're doing in schools as well, that we're starting to speak about this more, because trauma is always complex. Always complex, and there is a lack of understanding of trauma, and the treatment is varied. So there's no cut and paste, there's no put the post-it on it. Trauma is not just I was in the car accident or I was in the Vietnam War. Yeah, trauma is, it's not that. It can be when children are unheard or unseen. Birth is traumatic, and really these imprints affect adult life, and trauma plays a debilitating course in the body. Notice who comes to mind for you when I'm speaking here, right? So there is a reduced level of coping about being in the here and now. Being in the here and now, it's not safe, and this is where we see disassociation. The body's alarm bells get turned on, and often they're never turned off. The person, and I see this when I'm working with over time with some of the people, especially in recovery, they never feel relaxed or at ease in life, ever. It will manifest in chronic pain, muscular spasms, fibromyalgia, IBS, and yeah, I'm talking trauma. I'm bringing it down here to anxiety, depression. What are we seeing in our work, in our life? What's impacting us? There may actually be swelling of the body. Often, years of going to the GPs where there's no answer, or there's just tablets on top of tablets on top of tablets. The primal brain is constantly scanning for safety, and there's no calm center in the body. Sleep, you'll see this with your clients, the people you're working with. people can't sleep, right? The body is often alien to them. It's not safe. And this also prevents people from having healthy relationships, because how often trauma survivors survive, and I've learned this from working with people, is that they will use drugs, alcohol, food, sex, risky behaviors, just to stay out of this stuff, because I don't want to deal with this stuff. And the immune system is impacted, especially if there's so much hyper-arousal. I'm always watching my back. Well, I'm working with a young person at the minute who is 12, and on the first few sessions when I worked with her, she was so scared of everything going on. She's in care, she's been passed to different people, and the nervous system is starting to settle now, but full hyper arousal. So I'm seeing that in a child, but I also see this in my adult clients as well. But the immune system is impacted, and a recent study showed that survivors of incest and incest victims, their immune system was so excessively activated that there is high risk of autoimmune disease and chronic illness. But this is also where we have add in alcohol, I'll add in addiction here, when people are moving into, they're living in fight flight. You know, a yoga class is not going to really bring someone down into the level of tolerance. Often people live their whole lives here, but they might, for a heartbeat, for a moment, just notice a change, and that's why they come back. So if you are a therapist, if you are a yoga teacher, you don't have, you're potent enough. You are potent enough. If they come back, see that as that's your win. You don't have to go in, you don't ask, keep the boundary. If they've come back, something has changed. They've felt something, and they probably trust you as well, which is very important. Yeah, COVID, huge, again, where we saw trauma with COVID, where we're seeing it now. And I don't just mean this recent wave, I mean, because of what we've all been through, the pandemic, the tsunami is in your classes. It's in all of our therapy now. The tsunami of the dysregulation of the human race and what happened. Yeah. So many trauma survivors have a very dull internal world. So I work with someone who ironically is a psychologist, and she's completely cut off. She was just slowly over time beginning to notice where when something happens, to avoid her falling into burnout, and then her body literally just wanting to destroy her, she's completely cut off. She overworks. Yeah, but with other people, this may be that dull internal world is also the safest place people can be. Right. So with drugs, alcohol, like I mentioned, and also risky behaviors with sex, gambling, I don't know, maybe motorbikes, prostitution. But our nervous system is responding to the trauma here. And yeah, people lose control of their body. They feel unsafe in their body. And there is a survival to get away. So what I'm doing here is I think it's really important when we're talking so for when you speak to people about your trauma-informed work, that you're integrating something trauma-informed, is that if people want to go to a regular yoga class and do that stuff, that's fine. That's great. We are working with people who are vulnerable. We are working with the most vulnerable people in society. Yeah. We are dealing with people who are fragile. The fact that they're even in the room with you is not short of a miracle, right? So they are seeking healing, they're seeking something. So this is why we have to be so careful. This is why the trauma-informed method, rules, awareness is important, okay? And when, you know, with yoga as well, I'm just going to skip this video. You know, we need to look at what is yoga. And really, for me, I love yoga. It's part of my life, my healing, my medicine, all of this. And like yourselves, you have this interest, you would have all felt this. And then how do we teach this to other people? If they want to be in Times Square packed in, great, go for it. However, we're talking about people who are vulnerable, okay? And I just want to, so this is where we have to talk about safety and why safety is so important. And within yoga, so again, I'm moving this more into the yoga space and everything that that word means, says, yeah, like what is yoga today? It's a multi-billion pound industry. It's all over Instagram. It's all over social media. You know, people make a lot of money. I'm holding the healing. Know that I'm holding the healing and how wonderful it is. But it's quite confusing to people, you know, for what is actually going on, all the different names. You can do dog yoga, bear yoga, goat yoga, all of this stuff. So where is the healing in there? And I assume that you've all had, I have a sense that you would have had and actually somebody actually shared where some of what yoga is, regular yoga, might not be suitable for survivors, people who are vulnerable. People are often drawn to yoga because they're vulnerable. And this is happening more and more. Yes, and that's great. And I'm bringing into awareness these people, I'm doing this like a bird's nest. These people that we have to really look after and be mindful of. So we're going to go into breakout groups just for 10 minutes, or maybe 12 minutes, so there's enough time. Zena will put us in, so she'll put us into a group of 3 or 4. So you'll have to work the minutes out. I can't work it out, but just so everyone gets the time to speak. So just for you, what may feel unsafe in a yoga class, especially for trauma survivors? So Zena's going to send us all off there. If you're not comfortable going in the group, you're welcome to stay in the main room, and I just put some music on and no one will talk and you can just reflect. It would be wonderful if we can share this just for a few minutes, for about 5 minutes before we go to a break, about what were we hearing, what's not suitable for trauma survivors, people who are vulnerable, mental health.
I don't mind sharing what we were kind of talking about in
our group. Thanks, Kerry.
So we all kind of had similar views, so I'll just go through kind of what our list. So the first things that came up was asking people to trauma survivors to inviting them to do kind of any kind of breath work. When if the nervous system is dysregulated, asking them to then kind of steady the breathing can be really difficult. Asking people to keep their eyes closed, again, can be really triggering. We were saying about different positions as well, different where they are in the body, whether or not that's giving people a choice, or sitting, standing, and things like that is really important in any kind of trauma-informed yoga. We were saying, again, being around other people. So again, being in a space with other people can be quite difficult. Gender of the yoga teacher is a massive one. People don't always feel comfortable around certain sexes. And asking people to do partner work when again they don't feel comfortable in relation to another person. Awareness and knowledge. So we were saying that because there is so many different variations of yoga, that people quite often go to yoga class without any kind of information or knowledge around what that involves, which means that once they get there, they do feel unsafe, they do feel dysregulated, they might want to leave the room and then feel trapped and feel like they then can't stay in the present moment. One of the things I was saying is that quite a lot of trauma survivors I work with do not trust themselves, and they don't trust themselves in their own body either. Yeah. So then asking them to notice and be curious about what's going on for them, and asking them to be in a space of healing can be really difficult, and especially for a lot of trauma survivors as well. They often need permission that they just don't allow themselves, especially if there has been sexual violence or childhood abuse. They feel undeserving, or they struggle to be kind of show any compassion to themselves, which means that to give themselves permission to go to a yoga class or to heal is something that they feel like they're not allowed, which can be really unsafe. we looked around kind of how people then stay present in the here and now in yoga when, you know, they are in fight, flight, freeze or any other kind of trauma response when they are dysregulated. And I think that might be the list. Kind of, we looked at relationships. So again, you know, especially in a therapeutic relationship, we take time to build up that trust and allow people to feel safe. So again, in a yoga space, there might not be that capacity to build up that relationship with other people in the class, the tutor as well, teacher, sorry if my terminology is wrong, which again, you know, if people don't feel safe with another human being, which quite often people have experienced trauma, have been harmed by another human being, I think that can be really difficult. I think I might have gone through my list really fast.
Hey, that was a good list, Kerry. That was a good list. Thank you for that, Kerry. Anyone else from any of the other groups? It'd be great to hear. Such good learning.
I just repeating my introducing, but I just sharing them because the certain asana triggers me was Shavasana. As a lying dead pose or lying down pose, like lots of yoga classes do for the relaxation, but especially for me is nothing relaxing at all, and even like a closing eyes start like anxious. Then the yoga teacher who studied trauma informed mentioned people who especially had sexual abuse. So lying down pose and closing eye is triggers because you are kind of remember the body, and surrendering and letting go is scared for the people who survived. And yeah, this is how I learned. I have to be careful, like especially I'm conducting a yoga class, but maybe person didn't like the dead pose or like closing eye, and even some people love to relax, but some people not relaxing. And also being touched during the physical course, like closing eye, and the teacher tried to change the alignment, but you have to make sure ask is okay to touch to alignment or something, because some people are like frightening to being touched, even same sex. So I think kind of like scared to being touched. And also cue as well, teacher be careful for the language to cue, like a cat and cow pose. Some people like some yoga teacher tried to make a fun and say bums out or something like that kind of things, or spread the leg or something like that. So that kind of things are especially triggering that sexual abused people. So that from my experience. So I'm talking about. So.
Thank you, Katami. Excellent. Thank you. That's really useful. Go on, Wendy.
Just to add to that, we've got similar on our list. We talked about, you know, the feelings of being in control and out of control, and feelings of vulnerability. There might have been some body dysmorphia from some traumas, and worried about breathing because of perhaps asphyxiation. The feelings of numbness, and then feeling something in the body and noticing what you notice. And Sarah quite rightly said about, you know, kind of being careful about the aftercare. So what happens afterwards, because it may take time to kind of connect and for those neural pathways to kind of connect with, you know, kind of the trauma, or building new feelings of healing moving forward.
Great, thank you for sharing, Wendy.
I suppose oh, sorry.
Go on.
Carry on.
I suppose I was just leading on from my other group member that's already spoken, because a lot of things have been covered, but one thing we did touch upon in our conversation was the level of teaching of the yoga teacher themselves, and all the different yoga classes, and dare I say superficiality of some of them, and the responsibility and perhaps the safest thing would be the trauma-informed yoga teacher, and making sure that it is clear they are trauma informed, perhaps. Yeah. So those innocently but not naive or ignorant triggers that may occur in a class could be addressed by trauma informed yoga teachers.
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you, Sharon. Kate, what were you going to say? You were going to hop in there?
Yeah, just on that thread of safety, really, because we spoke a lot about everything else that people have said, but you know, yoga has become, as you said, really commercial, and people dip in and dip out, and that does sometimes create a sense of real unsafety in the class. And we were thinking perhaps a closed group where people got to know each other, where people owned their own space and owned the space in the class and had that trusting relationship with the teacher, might work better to enable them to heal, because it's very exposing coming in and you know, finding that someone else is in your space and there's somebody different, and it's noisy and it's over subscribed, and it becomes overbearing, and you know, a vulnerable person may actually, that may be much more detrimental to someone's well-being than not going at all. So I just, you know, being really aware. I was thinking, you know, when I started my classes, which I'm hoping to, that they will be closed to create that sense of safety, I think.
Yes. Thank you, Kate. Would anyone else like to share anything?
Yes, Nim? No? Okay.
Go for it.
Thank you. What I was talking with my members of the small group, I become aware that when you are entering in yoga classes, nobody's asking you about the trauma in my country. So there's some questions. Do you have some experience from yoga? Do you have some mental healthy problems? But there is no question about the mental health, about the trauma. And even there is a question, what if the therapist is, the yoga teacher is not educated for the trauma? Yeah. For example, in my country, there is no yoga trauma teacher, no one. That's one awareness. The second awareness is that when the trauma is happen, the clients want to go out from the body because the trauma is in the body. So when I send my clients to yoga, they will come back and say, Lina, it's not for me, because in the yoga we try to make a contact with the body, and the body is the source of the trauma, and they become afraid of their bodies, and then they quit totally from the yoga.
Yeah.
So it must be, the process must be very slow and sensitive, and with how to say, with micro movements. Because we must introduce with our body again, and that means the yoga teacher must be with education for trauma, because in every yoga school, I said to Sharon and Kelly that maybe it's about 30 to 40% maybe of the participants can be with yoga experience, but nobody knows about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Lina.
Yeah.
And anyone else before we take a break and have a move? Anything that we've missed, and we'll cover off some more bits when we get back. Okay. Let's take 10 minutes. Let's go and move, breathe, get outside, get some warmth. Go and get what you need, and we'll see you at 11:40. Right, see you back here in 10 minutes. Okay, go and get what you need. Bye. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Did we have a move? Good for you, Duncan, getting outside. Yeah, have a move, have a breathe. And again, what do you need right now to feel more comfortable? Please do that. Duncan's gone and sat outside on the patio. So whatever you need, please do that. And it's probably, am I the most north? No, Katomi was in Scotland. But it'll be warmer where you are. If you're yeah, so just watch for the heat. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to just dive into a few more. Again, if other things come to mind, please put them in the chat, which is wonderful. So we've covered a lot of these. And remember, I'm not yoga bashing here. We're not yoga bashing. I love yoga, and we are talking about the people, these people, okay? And why I'm so interested in this is I've been on yoga retreats I've been doing this for a long time, like probably a lot of you, 20 odd years. And I've been on yoga retreats and people have had to fly home. I've seen people literally having breakdowns in people doing rebirthing exercises. Hey, and if regular people want to go and do that, that's fine, right? But I've seen the fallout. And also with some of my clients, because even though I've done yoga before, I'm a therapist, if I played the fiddle and the flute, I'm thinking of Lizzo playing a flute, right? So if I played the flute and that was good for my mental health, if I'm working with a client, I'm not going to suggest to play the flute, right? However, because yoga is so popular, a lot of clients, they're mostly wanting to get to know it, or they already do it. They have an interest in the breathing. But also, I just need to fess up to something here, that I've made all of these mistakes. Please don't think, before I was a therapist, I was in training as a therapist thinking, oh my God, I've done all of this wrong. So I'm owning all of that, right? Without any knowledge, all of it. So this is where it's just when we're talking about the vulnerable people. So I'm just going to go through a few more things because we've covered most of them. The large class, the loud breathing. I'm triggered by breathing, men or women, honestly, men worse. And I'm there thinking, have these people got absolutely no awareness? And I have told someone to stop it. And when people go into the ujjayi breath, if you're in like a hot, with people who have been doing it a long time, the ujjayi breath, and I do it myself, but sometimes it's so triggering for me. I'll go hyper aroused just hearing it, the noise. The instructor often dresses in revealing clothes. Students might be expected to wear tight clothes. So it's quite sexual. So there's some sexual energy can be in the space. You're touched without being asked, as somebody mentioned. And what I'd like you to do, because I assume that you go to yoga classes, well, a lot of you will. When I work with some yoga teachers, they'll say, well, I ask at the beginning if anyone wants to be touched. And I say, well, how many people put their hands up? Oh, none. Or then sometimes people will say, you lean forward in child's pose in a class, and then they'll say, raise your hand if you don't want to be touched. Try that. See how shaming that is to do that and how alienating. Just try it. Horrendous. So I'm there when I'm going to classes and I think, well, I do it for research for the workshops. I don't want to do it. And that's me, right? So I want you to try that and see how utterly shaming that is to do that. And recently I did it. No, I did it. I'll give you two examples. One time I did it, and the girl wouldn't leave us alone. She'd been teaching for about 3 weeks, super keen, right? And I love a new teacher because they're really into it. She couldn't leave me alone. She knew she couldn't touch me, but it was as if she just wanted me to like her more. So I'm like, oh my God. And then I did it about a couple of months ago, and it was in a hot yoga class, which is not trauma informed at all. And I put my hand up, and the lad totally forgot, and he came over and he was adjusting me. So imagine if that was going to trigger you. It was like, okay. So the clothing, the touch is a big one. It's controversial. I've worked with some teachers and they've said, anyone who walks in my yoga studio, I will touch and do what I want with their body. This is real, right? And the partner work, it's great for community, it's great for this, but partner work for me is hugely triggering. It always has. I walk into that room and I've worked out who's with who. If there's a man there, Duncan, you would have had the experience. You're the man in the room, right? The yoga. But I've worked out, is that man? And if I'm next to that man, and it took me 20 years, honestly, to be able to say to a teacher, I'm not doing this. And this was only probably just before lockdown I did it. And I said, I'm not doing partner work. And then 2 other women in the class went and stood at the wall with me and let them do it. I don't get us wrong. When it's good, I get that. But we're dealing with people who are vulnerable. Again, genders, when there's a penis in the room, there's a penis in the room. Students are singled out with compliments and criticisms. This is in our teaching, right? We've been taught by men, a lot of the yoga teachings. And again, this is me of being aware of it. Let me show you. So remember, I love yoga, but if you look at the hierarchy, how the teaching has come down, it's men, right? Mr. Iyengar, men, there you go, there's a naked man, Patabi Joyce. Most of these people have been taken down with Me Too, quickly forgotten about. So yeah, the men will come and put their hands on. So it's like, then they trained all the white women and no one's questioning that we've been taught by men. And somebody else mentioned about the names. So often I used to chuckle, honestly, I used to like have a snigger when they go, sex organs. Today, I'm going to be on a yoga where people are talking about sex organs. But in the past, I would chuckle, buttocks. I think someone mentioned, the joke about buttocks, chest. They're old-fashioned terms that men would use and women didn't speak up about and didn't say they were okay. They're not okay. The lot sort of singled out with criticisms. Think about grooming, right? So therefore, people are being forced to go to the front of the class. There's a very commanding tone rather than invitational. Hey, and you're trained in this way as a yoga teacher because you've got to get 30 people to do this or do that, and we've only got an hour or an hour and 15 or an hour and a half. And there's little understanding of more so now, but of the triggering and disassociative potential of yoga props, the blocks, mine are outside, the blocks, the straps. So think about people who've been bound, when there's been torture, even the metaphorical language is removed in the trauma sensitive work. So there's no metaphor, there's no tree, there's no cat, cow, there's none of the jokes that someone mentioned. And there's also in regular yoga, there's very long periods of silence and relaxation, which can be great if that's for you, but not for this group, as it already has been discussed with us today. There's a lot of magic. There's a lot of my yoga teacher can walk on water, or I walked on hot coals. How many times have I heard this? And I do the eye roll, right? And that's before I was a therapist. I knew it was bullshit, The magic, the crystals, they've changed the name. Suddenly the middle-class white woman's walking around with a white turban on and she's got a gong in her back room, right? I understand it, I get it, but not people who are vulnerable will get lost in this. There is a real power dynamic. There's a lot of emphasis on external shape and being judged. Again, think about sexual exploitation, being groomed, and that language is old. The groins, the breasts, the open legs. Nobody's speaking up about it. It's not okay. We've been taught we need to question this, and I need to encourage you to challenge it. This is a new one, newish, taking photographs on social media without consent. I see it and I'm like, holy crap. There's like, if people were asked, well, maybe they want to please the person, but there is a real power dynamic that goes on. When somebody is in this chair that I'm in, when I get on the mat, I'm in a position of power. Also, the spaces are very white. And there's issues with gender, LGBTQ, for trans spaces. I have quite a few people who are trans come to my classes. So I just need you to notice that space. And there's this book now. So I'm not the only voice going on about this. Remember, I love yoga. We want to get as many people of these birds to the healing, right? We know it. But there's this stuff. So again, around diversity, I'd recommend this new book. It's called The Yoga Manifesto, and it's by a Pakistani lady called Nadia Gilani. It's a new book, and she's challenging the appropriateness of the yoga, and the gongs, the magic, the Buddhas, the Om signs, the Om tattoos, the Namaste, the namaste jokes, you know, I'm going to stay at home and all of this. Boundaries are an issue. And I've got this wrong in the past with student and teacher. Yes, it's good for mental health. And especially, you know, I know this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I often get yoga teachers projecting quite a lot of anger towards me, as does this lady as well, when she's talking about race. But what happens? So yoga teachers, you can't walk on water. You know, somebody actually contacted me the other day, it was a therapist, and she said, all yoga teachers are healers and they have to earn their money. And I thought, yeah, and some of them are rapists as well, right? So there's no DBS to be a yoga teacher, but also you've got to keep yourself safe. So and I've worked with someone who this happened to them, where what happens if someone says they're going to commit suicide at the end of a session and it's Friday night and you're going to be with your kids and they've got your number? What are you going to do? You need to be able to refer people on because people are vulnerable. So I'm going to just give you an example here. And I don't know if anyone's seen the documentary, the Bikram documentary on Netflix. I'm going to show you. I don't normally show the trailer, but I think it's important because I feel the energy of Me Too and this stuff is fading. It's a bit like on local radio stations, people are playing Michael Jackson again. You know, on Radio 1, they won't play Michael Jackson. It just fades. So I'm just going to show you this little video.
This is what's happening in Beverly Hills. There's a yoga college of India, and the man who runs it is Yogi Bikram.
You've never really done yoga until you've done a Bikram class.
With millions in the bank and millions of followers, Bikram is doing something right.
People would say, what's he like? And I would say, he sees himself as a cross between Mother Teresa and Howard Stern.
He was a teacher who was going to make me perfect.
He saw potential in you that you might not see. But he has a really ugly side.
He looked at me and said, suck that fat stomach in. I don't like to see the jiggle jiggle. Bikram was so good at getting inside of our brains.
I'm going to suck with the last drop of blood you have.
How could smart women endure weeks with this guy?
I'd seen flashes of megalomania, but I didn't know how diabolical he actually was.
Don't look so sad.
He kept telling me that he wanted to make me famous and that I just had to stay close with him.
That's why I am here.
Bikram called me out of class and into his office, and he said, what are we gonna do about us? Should we make this a relationship? And it was just like, oh my God. I don't want to say that I was brainwashed, but that's what was happening.
There was a camp that was going to hang him by his nails. And there was a camp that was saying these girls asked for it.
It was really hard because I wouldn't be the person who I am today without him.
The young women who want to believe in something so badly, those are the people that he targets.
A lot of people tell a lot of stories and that becomes their truth.
I'm happy he's still teaching class.
You are not intelligent, wise, experienced enough to understand who I am.
It's not over.
Okay, so if that is interesting to you, that's on Netflix. That came out a couple of years ago. And what is interesting is that, have some of you seen it? Yeah, you've seen it? And you may not want to watch it because that's what it's about. So it'll be hugely, it is triggering. So what's interesting is Mr. Bikram, if he can't go back to the States now because he will be put in prison for rape. He's a rapist. But he fled to South America. And now he works in Spain. So he's a rapist. Remember, this is no DBS, any of this. And this is, I'll just show you a quick video. His trainings are sold out in Spain now.
Don't turn your heel, turn your toes out. Turn half your This was in my contact, spine the second, bring the right, zigzag, parallel, rectangle, upside down, incline, everything was set up and go down and say, sit, don't go up, keep moving on him. Is everybody like Maisa? Sit on, sit on back, go, don't keep your hips there.
So there's lots of that. So I'm really just wanting to highlight here how it actually still is now. So I was shocked, like I say, Spain, in Spain, I was just in Spain actually, but yoga's quite new in Spain. So he's there selling out now. Totally, he's a rapist, right? So there's something around, and also the narcissism that I've seen a lot with yoga teachers, anyone on a position of power, whatever that podium is, the narcissists are there, right? So again, just being aware of that. So I'm going to segue away from that, and let's look at the trauma-informed yoga. Okay, because we're working with vulnerable people. So within the trauma-informed yoga, the language, it's all welcome. And if you can do one thing to feel more comfortable, please do that. And we're always, where possible, we can't stop people disassociating, but we can do what we can and even name it. So when I'm working with people, you know, and I will let them know what we're doing. When we're noticing the lengthening, it's so we don't go off, we don't disappear. Yeah. So the language that we're going to, I'd invite you to maybe grab a notebook that you're going to use, rather than I can send it to you and you'll never look at the slide again. If there's something you can scribble on, that would be useful for you to grab now. So also there's no student comments in trauma-informed yoga at the end. I also don't make any eye contact. So I won't on video, I'll try not to, but there's no, usually in a regular class you're watching, and I will say to people, I'm not making any eye contact. I say that at the beginning. There's no straps and blocks. I do not leave my mat, and there's no touch. I tell them that at the very beginning. No touch, I'm not leaving, and there'll be no eye contact. And I name it because I'll make a joke about it, that you might think it's a bit odd. It's just so we all feel safe in the room. People can leave when they want. Somebody mentioned there about being stuck in the room and you can't get out. I've had people have panic attacks in the hot pod yoga. I don't know if you've seen it, where it's like a big room, a big purple room, and then they zip you in and it's hot. And I've been there and someone's had a panic attack and there was people who couldn't get out. But in this yoga, you can leave when you want. If you were doing perfect, and Kate, you mentioned this, about there being no drop-ins. Yeah, that's great. In some of the places I work, that's not possible, but it is at least a closed group. They're part of they've been invited, they're with a worker. Obviously people might be having bad days, but there's a bit of community between the people who are part in the recovery world anyway. I wear very loose clothing. Think about what you're wearing, right? I would probably wear this but have it untucked, no leggings, baggy, no makeup, a little bit of makeup, just so I don't look like like I've got out of bed, but no makeup. I won't put any jewelry on. Everything's about making choice, you know, not being overlooked as well. There's a lot, I'll share this with you, but check the windows, go and do a recce beforehand in the space, so nobody's being overlooked, nobody's coming in. I've had police officers come in, social workers come in, and I'll say to them, right, you're either getting on the mat and you're joining in or you're outside. Yeah, just being very, very mindful of that. So it's a very different pace, and how I advertise it, and I'd encourage you, if you're a yoga teacher or if you're looking to refer students to this type of yoga, it's gentle yoga, but really being very clear about the language that you use, about comfy clothes, and that be very clear that there's no touch and adjustments made by the teacher. Yeah, very, very important, very important. So I'm just going to if I missed anything here, present no student comments. Yeah, in the purest form with the trauma sensitive yoga, they don't even use the word posture. Again, think about grooming, posing. Photographs, they use the word form. No touch. Size class is important. So smaller the better. Honestly, I've got this wrong. 12 feels too much. 10's okay. 8's great. Never do it 1-to-1. Never do it 2-to-1. It's too intense. Think of the people we're working with. It's too much. It's too much. I would hate to do it 1-to-1. Oh, yeah, it's far too much. 8's, I'd say 8's good. 6, 8. Be mindful of the genders. Think about it. In one place I work, it's women only. In another recovery place, it's mixed. Would I prefer all women? Yes. However, it's set out and there's some community there. What I also do is, sometimes in a yoga class, people put their mats down in the same place every week. I hate that, right? But they do. And what I do, and a lot of these people who will work, remember, we want to get this healing to as many people as possible. They've often never been to yoga classes before, but actually give people permission to don't put mats out. Imagine that, go next to someone who you don't like, or there's one mat left next to the man. I say people, I welcome them, go and put your mat where you feel safe in the room. Everybody wants to be in the corner. I don't care, everyone can be in the corner, right? Some of them aren't bothered, right? Let people go where they feel safe. No people watching, boundaries, loose clothes and makeup. Yeah, not being overlooked. And yeah, give them the space. And also, there's something where I had a little bit of a I'm just sharing some of the learning from the groups I've had. Maybe I thought people wouldn't be fit. Maybe I thought they wouldn't be flexible. I've worked with a charity who paid for me to go down to York to work with 3 of their hardest to reach people. I didn't know what I was going to get in recovery. One used to be a professional horse rider. One was a professional swimmer. One was a ballet dancer. I couldn't believe the flexibility. And one lady had done a yoga DVD for 15 years. These are like, so there was a real noticing of the flexibility and the movement I could have with different groups, yet you're still applying these rules, really. Yeah. Have we got any questions on that before I go into the wording? Just feel free to unmute if you've got any questions. Or Zina, is there any questions in the chat?
Not related to specifically what you're saying now.
Anything else before we're sort of segueing into the wording?
Can I just ask a question about the blocks, using blocks?
Do it.
I understand the straps. I'm not sure if I've missed something, but I wasn't sure about the blocks and how they would be a problem.
In the trauma centre, in Bezel's trauma centre, there's no props. So you've got to think about if people are putting something between their legs.
Okay.
So, putting something between their legs, being told to do something. Again, the straps, being bound. And don't get me wrong, I understand the benefits of it, but I would, for this group of people, just drop them out, just don't have them. You can work without them.
Yeah, thank you.
That makes sense. It's more that, imagine the people that we're working with, how they may have been restrained, told to do something. Again, putting something between your legs.
Yeah.
It might be trigger.
That makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Good question. And anybody else about that? We've sort of gone from the darkness to how we're putting some safety in for these people. Okay, anything? Drop it in the chat if something comes to you, and Zina will bring it in. Okay, let's have a little move. Just to get rid of that darkness, can I just ask you just to have a little stand up for a minute? Just have a little stand up and have a little move. Just have a little move. Wherever you are, just stand up. If you can just stand up and just have a move. And if I can ask you to just turn around and just look around you, just getting back in the space. And I want you to really feel your feet. Feel your feet under you on the floor. Feel your feet under you on the floor. Take a breath, have a stretch. Great. Have a little walk around, have a shake. Just get rid of that, and then just coming back to wherever you want to be. And if you want to grab a notepad, you will get the slides with the wording, and just something that I would like you to start integrating this next week. Right, and even randomly people you live with, you might try it out later on today, but I'd like you to start integrating this into your work next week. So obviously we've just talked a lot about a yoga class there, so and this is why I don't recommend yoga. I think I went off on one before with the flute, but I don't recommend yoga to my clients, because even when I did, some of them were going to yoga classes and being triggered. One student of mine who there was some sexual abuse, she actually, they're opening up Bikram, hot yoga and Bikram yoga near where I live. It was sort of a real non-thing to do. And she went in and she went, Lorna, there's pictures of the rapist on the wall. And all these people are like following him. Again, people can do what they want. I'm just raising awareness. I'm just raising awareness with a gentle challenge. So, and I've also had other clients who have gone on really good. They got into it, but then they went on a retreat and it was all the deep stuff, the meditation, the long periods of time. She had a psychotic break when she was there, and she had to get home. Yeah, because she just was lost in the purple clouds and the gong and this and all of that. So yeah. And so again, there's no Shavasana in the trauma-informed yoga, maybe 7 breaths maximum. 7 breaths maximum. Maybe 3 breaths. Maybe you don't do it at all. And always given choice. So these are the words that we're going to start using. And again, for therapists, the setup is, if you are going to work one-to-one with someone in therapy and bring in some gentle movement, and we're going to just do it now, we have to put some of this safety in place. So contract for it, discuss it, that they're happy with that, and also let them know. So when you work together in the room, I need you to move your chair. You must not, if I've got a client here, I'm not looking at my client doing this. I'm in that position of power. We need to change that. So move your seats to a different part of the room, or I mean, that if you're in a GP, literally have your seats together, maybe looking out to the wall and out of the window if that's safe, something so you are not looking at your client. You need to physically move, okay? So there's no eye contact there. So I'm just, keep me right if you've got questions, because I'm jumping between a class here and one-to-one, right? So the word that we need to begin to integrate is notice. So we'll do this, we're going to do this real time as well. So sitting on the edge of your seat, I'd like you to notice the floor under your feet. Don't ask them to take the shoes off. If they want to, that's fine. This is more how we start one-to-one. For yoga teachers, just know you can integrate this from the beginning of the class if you're using seats or not. Also, when I teach, I tend to have a seat there just in case. And sometimes I do start on the seats. So just feeling the floor underneath you. There's no eye contact. I'm not looking at that person. I know they've not left the room. I know they're there, but they know I'm not looking at them, right? Okay, so we're going to just notice the floor. Just begin to notice where you're sitting on the seat. And just beginning to lengthen the spine. Just notice the spine lengthening. And if you like, and when you're ready, just beginning to drop your chin to your chest. So we'll do this together. I'm sort of giving you an ad lib on the side, chin to the chest, chin to the chest. And if you like, and when you're ready, bringing your chin up to one shoulder. No left or right. Trauma survivors very often don't know left from right. Drop any left or right in your instructions. Be honest that you might get that wrong yourself. Doesn't matter, doesn't matter. No left or right. And when you're ready, just taking the chin to the other side. Being curious about the movement. And then what we're going to do is notice that lengthening. You know, when we've done this a couple of times before this morning, I'm saying to notice that lengthening in your neck. So this is interoception. You know, Bezel mentioned interoception. So this is where we notice that edge, that lengthening of the neck. So slowly just letting that go, bringing the hands to the knees, bring the chin to the chest, arching the spine. So noticing that stiffness of the spine, or how far the spine is arching, and then gently bringing the chin up, maybe the collarbones forward, and maybe taking the gaze up. And we're going to notice a lengthening at the front of the throat. This is the interception bit. This is where we are safe parts of the body, right? No groins, no breasts, no sex organs, no. So we're noticing the lengthening. So this is interception. It's keeping us in our body. So using the word allow, so just allowing that lengthening to take place. And if you like, and when you're ready, that's the golden one. If you like, and when you're ready. Sometimes because I've been doing this for quite a while now, sometimes I think, is this actually really landing? And then when you get the feedback from the students, it's the permission. You're constantly given permission. And when you're doing it, delivering a movement, always give an A-B choice. So if you like, and when you're ready, maybe bringing the chin to the chest, arching the spine. So we can stay here. Or another option would be to get a hold of the knees and maybe take the chin, and you may want to inhale. Sip a little breath. You sip a little breath's a good one. Sip a little breath at the top. And then you may choose to, so you're given A-B options. With trauma survivors, we cannot give enough choice. Always give choice. In your mind, you'll be like, it's hard work. You are talking all the time. You are talking, there's no uncomfortable silences. Yoga teachers, it's hard work, right? You'll be shattered afterwards. You need a cup of tea. So there's no, just to avoid any uncomfortable silences. And this is a good one, especially very often we do to take the arms. I would do this standing. I'll stand. You can stand if you like. So I'll just take this up. So we may just take the arms down, and we're going to do this 3 times. So you name it. That's the one. And again, so the second time. So you may choose to sip a little breath at the top. And you may notice your hands touching and the temperature of your hands. And sometimes you notice and sometimes you don't, and that's okay. That one is very powerful to deliver that. So for the final time, arms round, you may notice the palms touching and slowly bringing the hands down. Look at your hands. Get people looking at the hands. Can they look at the hands and wiggle their toes at the same time? Being in the space, something called proprioception that I want to talk about as well. So we know that we're connecting with our body, but that we're somewhere in space, where we are in space. So that sometimes you notice and sometimes you don't, and that's okay. That's given permission. Okay, so we're really bringing awareness to how the client does things and how it makes them feel. Also, those permissions can be at the start of the class when you say to people, and in therapy when they're sitting next to you, what would you like to change? If there's anything you can do to feel more comfortable. I've had people go out or put their scarf on, get a glass of water. In the yoga class, because these people aren't used to coming to yoga, like they literally change everything. I've had people, right, lights off, move me mat, I want this done, shut the blinds. In a regular yoga class, people are just doing what they're told, right? There's that go back, mat in the same place. I couldn't believe it. Also, people I've worked with, be aware and I would encourage you as a yoga teacher to maybe look at integrating this. I have one lady, she's been coming to the class now for about 4 years. A social worker I used to come with her. Now she comes on her own. She gets there on the dot, after the dot of start. That's fine. I don't like going to classes early. It's like I have flashbacks of sport and all these cliquey. I go to a Zumba class. You've never seen such cliquey women in your life. I get there right on the dot myself because it's really anxiety inducing just getting to a class. So one lady, she actually goes behind the sofa where I am. She used to, now she comes in and she's at the side. She's still there 2 minutes past. Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. She's wonderful. So these are the key words I'm wanting you to really begin to integrate, right? And we're sharing power. And if you're working with someone in therapy, Something we wouldn't normally do in therapy is say, oh, my shoulder's hurting as well, because it's all about the client. Whereas here, I need you to share that actually, oh, my neck's a little bit tight today. Be honest. If your leg's hurting, right? Or if your spine's a bit stiff, oh, I'm noticing my spine's a bit stiff. Share that. Share that. Okay. So words here are focus on, curious, investigate, feel. Yeah. Phrases, if you're ready, you may notice a feeling or sensation in your neck, in your spine. And we can give our clients some of these movements. In therapy, really, you only need 3 or 4 because the client can then start to work on them outside of the session. Okay, so the invitational language, these are the winners. If you, and I'll send you these slides, but I just want to start to get them in the muscle. If you like them when you're ready. Sometimes you notice and sometimes you don't, and that's okay. Choice making, that experiment, right? The interoception, the present moment awareness. So I'm going to send you this yoga class. You can do this. Have we got time? I just want to run through. Yeah, I'm just going to do this. Let's just do this again. Let's get it in the muscle. Can you sit right on the edge of your seat? We're going to do this. I'm just want to run through the posture so you know what they are, okay? And again, if you're working online with someone, put the camera off, just notice the difference. In a yoga class, if I did something online, I never have the camera on, ever. Or if they're sitting next to you. So we've got the seated mountain. So this is sitting on the edge of your seat, feet on the floor. Really, you might want to tap your heels. So this is good with trauma, especially with anxiety, to tap the heels, hands by the side, spine lengthening. Choice here. There's no have your eyes closed, eyes open or eyes closed. You choose, you decide. And then you may go into the shoulder rolls, just some gentle shoulder rolls, and then maybe bringing the fingertips to the shoulders and making some circles with the elbows. And feel free to maybe work on one side, so we're not staying left and right, the other side. So just experiment with that. No, and bring it back into that, any clicks and pops in the neck, noticing a lengthening in the neck or any tension. Then the neck rolls, so you can let go of that, hands on the thighs. The neck rolls gently, chin to the chest, again noticing a lengthening at the side of the neck, maybe into the shoulders, into the spine. And sometimes we notice and sometimes we don't, and that's okay. And then from where you are now, just put the feet on the floor and stand. Just stand up where you are. You don't need to, you can just follow my voice, just stand up. And again, just gently leaning forward, front of the toes, back of the toes. Can you find your middle? And make a joke, the middle changes all the time. And then taking the arms to the side, bend your knees a bit. Arms out and up. And again, hands, and then slowly slowing the breath down. Slowly coming back. So we do this 2 more times. Remember, you're repeating. You're saying you work in 3s. So that's for the second time. And the final time. With trauma, people often don't see an ending. It's never going to end. So this is why we give the numbers and we count it down to 3. 3, 2, 1. So they know it's going to end. Okay. Then you can do a side stretch. Again, you can do this gently seated, or you can do it standing. I know yoga teachers, you'll be able to integrate this in. But again, take the awareness to the feet. Feel your soles of your feet. That gentle lengthening at the side of the body, through the side ribs. And just feel free to try that on the other side. And you may want to sip a little breath when you do this. Eyes open or closed, maybe experimenting with the neck, what feels best for you. Letting them experiment. Then the seated twist, which we did earlier, which is where the hand goes to the side and back. and then bringing the awareness back to the floor, right on the edge of the seat. And you can do a forward fold here. So watch, I'll just watch I don't hit me head on the laptop. Okay, so gently leaning forward. Options again. So the first option is you can just put your forearms on your thighs and just lean forward. Or another option may be for you to let the hands fall to the floor. Okay, so you could also place your hand on something like a pillow, if that feels useful. If you can't reach the floor, that's fine. And then slowly wiggling your toes, wiggling your fingers, coming up to lengthen the spine. Okay, if we had more time, I would put you in a breakout group and we would do that. But we're running out of time a bit here. So I need you to get it. I'm encouraging you, please, to get this in the muscle. How are you going to integrate this? Empowerment, right? So this is no intervention that takes power away from the survivor can possibly foster her recovery, no matter how much it appears to be in her immediate best interest. So there's none of this, I just knew it was the right thing to do at the time. We're dealing with vulnerable people here. Yeah, so I'm going to really encourage you to start integrating this, start speaking the words out loud, so we get that. I want you to get it wrong and how we practice it. Yeah, it's really, really important that we start to use this wording. And I'll tell you what, just because there's been quite a lot there, let's just take 5 minutes right now to move, breathe, cool down, get a bit of water. Let's take 5 minutes and come back. I'll see you in 5. Let's go and have a move and have a breathe. Welcome back, everyone. Did you have a little move and a wiggle? Yeah, good, good. Okay, so we're going to segue away from that. Again, I'm really encouraging you to do this, to get it wrong, because that's how we learn, okay? To do it and get it wrong, notice any feedback that you might get. Know you're going to be nervous doing this, and you may have your little checklist of words. And that's absolutely fine. It's how we learn, right? Do new stuff. No, get it wrong, think, oh, okay. And then, wow, what have I learned from that? So for the last half hour, I'm going to jump over some of the therapeutic goals. I just believed it was important in this group. I could hear that you wanted some practical tips. So I've focused on a lot of the practical stuff. So let me give you some therapeutic goals. So trauma-informed. Remember, what I'm really happy about is everyone talks about trauma-informed, this, that, and the other now. But trauma-informed is more than the fruit bowl in reception, right? It has to be for the staff and you as well as the students, right? So you can't remind me enough that I have choices. Give choice in everything, okay? And present moment experience. So a quote from Bezel is, the single most important issue for traumatized people is to find a sense of safety in their own bodies. Okay, and I'm going to just play this quick video by David Emerson, who is the Bezel's yoga teacher, not friend now. And he's just going to do a little shoulder practice with us, so more physical.
Hi, in this short video clip, we could experiment with a choice-making practice. And one way to do that might be...
Sorry. I got excited.
Hi, in this short video clip, we could experiment with a choice-making practice. And one way to do that might be to use some shoulder rolls. So one way to move your shoulders, you could experiment if you want with making circles. And just notice that you could make the circles either forward or backward. So the circles can move either forward or backward. And that just gives you some choice. You can go in one direction the whole time, or you could switch. You could experiment with switching. And As you move, you may notice some feeling around your shoulders. So one choice here is the direction that you move your shoulders, and you can experiment with that. It could be one direction, or you could switch a couple of times. Another possibility is that you're in charge of the size of the movements. So you can make these movements smaller or bigger. And again, that just provides more opportunity for choices. You can make very small movements, you can make bigger gestures. Sometimes we know what we want to do, and we could just do that. We could make our choice based on the fact that we might know what we want to do. Sometimes we don't know, and in that case, one possibility is to notice how it feels. So the different size movements might feel different. Smaller movements might feel different than bigger movements to you and your body. And maybe allowing that sensation to help you choose what you want to do. So there's a couple of connections with happening there. One is that you are in charge of the size of the movement. You can experiment there. Another piece of that is the size of the movement you make might feel different in your body. It might feel different. So you can experiment with noticing sensation.
Okay. So I'll send you that video, but what I really like you to reflect on from that video is David wrote this book. He's got notes. If you look at that video again, you can see him reading the words. Don't expect to know this off. Obama has a script, has auto cue, right? Do not expect to do this and remember it all in here. I've got it all written down in front of me here on paper. If you watch that video, David's doing the same. He's like, okay, be curious about this. Notice this. Have your notes with you. Have it written on the side. We've got to get it in the muscle. And again, that involves getting it wrong. And also there's something with that when we move, and I'll talk about this a bit more with the breath, that it will not feel appropriate in some places to talk about the breath because of how powerful it can be. But by you moving as a therapist or teacher, so when we do this, we breathe, right? You can hold your breath and do it, but when we relax, we breathe. And the student or your client, they'll copy you. So you have to be brave and make the bigger move. So because they'll copy you. It's a bit like when you sit down, they sit down. Okay, so Bezel talked about interoception, but there are 3 words that I want to bring into awareness here, right? So interoception is noticing what is going on inside of your body. So this is the lengthening of the neck, the stiffness in the hips. Yeah, when we begin to notice that, it's known as our 7th sense, and it's what's going on. So it allows us to interpret, integrate, and regulate what's going on. So the brain communicates with all of our internal organs via the fascia, so like a web, a spider's web that keeps us all together, constantly sending messages through our nervous system, right? So when we're healthy, we can notice our posture, how we're sitting, the feet on the floor right now. So just feeling the feet on the floor, bending the spine. If we're hot, if we're cold. A lot of people with trauma don't know if they're hungry or thirsty. A lot of children don't know if they're hungry or thirsty. Sometimes we don't know if we're hungry or thirsty or need to go to the toilet. So it's about bringing attention to our own needs. So when there's a dysfunction of interoception, which there is with trauma survivors, anxiety, depression, and everything else we work with, yeah, there are lots of neurological and behavior disorders attached with that. So that's why I'm encouraging you to have people feel their feet on the floor firmly, tap their heels, feel their seat, move forward, move back. So they're feeling their weight move, because Both good and bad sensations are triggered by nerve endings encased in fascia, and it's processed through the brain. So trauma survivors and clients experiencing anxiety and depression are frequently disconnected from what is good and bad for them. Yeah. Anxiety and depression are accompanied by significant alterations in interoception. Interestingly, please be note if you have any when people are hypermobile. So that ballerina lady that I worked with was completely hypermobile. And when we started to work, we had to begin to notice that she wasn't noticing, and this also played into her drinking, because she had no boundary between, she didn't know when it was her, when it was another person, unhealthy relationships, she didn't know where to stop. There was no edge. So when we are noticing the lengthening, the edge, can you back away from the edge? So, and it's funny, in these classes, I do get quite a lot of people who are hypermobile. So just notice that. And then what are we watching? Because there's no interoception. So it's how can we notice in awareness, I'm aware I'm going too far, I'm like this. So it's just slowly bringing that in. So interoception in yoga is very important, and we can start to talk about it to our students. Right, the next word, and they all sound the same, and I put them in the same color just to confuse you even more. Proprioception. Let me keep it simple. I'm doing another workshop on fascia. I just wanted to really put this in. Proprioception, right? So this is known as the sixth sense. And I'm not a sporty person, but I've been doing some research on some sport, and people talk about proprioception. If you're sporty, you may know about this before. So proprioception is the feeling your physical body in awareness of the environment. So again, feet on the floor. In Latin, it means having a grasp of oneself. So a quick test is putting your finger on your nose. And the more I've looked into this, it really connects with my work. Yeah, finger on the nose seems easy, right? We're here Saturday morning, seems easy. Feeling the ground under the floor. Be curious about the temperature. So I'll sometimes say, can you notice the temperature between your fingers? And then I normalize it. Sometimes we notice and sometimes we don't. When our proprioceptors are restricted due to emotional stress and trauma, they make us feel inflexible and damages our overall health. And we are then more susceptible to chronic disease, pain, and inflammation. It's because of the abnormal function of proprioception throughout the body, especially in the joints. So I see this a lot, and you'll see it more, the teachers, in poor balance. I notice it myself. If I haven't got my glasses on, and I tell people, put your glasses on if you're doing a balance, I can't do a balance. I'm out of whack if I don't have my glasses on. The more I've thought about this, and it's been in my body, because I'm writing something about this, when I'm tired, I'm wobbly. Just notice when you're wobbly and what's going on. Think about your clients when they're not sleeping, yes, trauma survivors, but think about alcohol, right? Drugs, how you don't know where you are. So you've checked out from that proprioception, right? Yeah, I'm going to ask you to get curious about that. Balance is one. People don't. So anything you can do when you're with clients in the room, and give it to them as homework, to be able to notice where they are, to feel the floor, to notice the top of the head, the sun on their skin, right? The feet on the floor, the different temperature. Bring this in. It's in the teaching that we've been doing today, right? Interoception, the lengthening of the spine, how that feels, proprioception, the floor, so we are coming into the space. But just get curious yourself when you might be out of whack and when your clients might be out of whack. Yeah. And it's very slowly being able to integrate this. And so, tired of these are just some notes I wanted to put in. Think of a client where mental health isn't good, sleep's gone to pot, right? So the balance, poor mind-body connection. I notice this in myself when I'm tired, and the more I've researched it, I would like you to notice it, your mind-body connection when it's good, and actually I'm shattered, or I'm hungry, or I'm stressed, yeah, or I'm hot. Have clients got sleep apnea? Again, drunk, hangovers, that numbing. Do they want to stay in that numbing? The glasses. Interestingly, one of the veterans I work with, Eddie, said that only when he was in recovery, the only thing that made him feel in control was doing yoga and mindfulness videos off YouTube when he was in crisis for years. And yes, we're talking about men, hard to reach alphas, made him feel in control because he was just disassociated, gone. And there's something else, it's slightly outside of yoga, but it's very important that other exercise is good. Anything that you can bring it in. If you call it yoga, people might run out the door, think it's for the rich white people, right? Bring them, you can call it movement, call it breathing. Look at Wim Hof with the breath. Everyone wants to know about breathing, right? But exercise, we often get our clients to engage in exercise, absolutely. But proprioception does not improve if you've got your earpods in and you're listening to dance anthems and you're on the treadmill. You're completely disassociating from your body, right? And I've been practicing this myself, doing some different exercises, and I'm completely not connected with my body. So how can we slow things down? I'm thinking of runners, right? And how people may often hurt themselves with exercise, or how can we improve proprioception? But again, it's when you've got the earphones on and the music banging, proprioception is not happening. Yin yoga is excellent for this. I haven't even mentioned that yet. Yin yoga is very good because we are really connecting with the body. Right, finally, another word that sounds like the other two words and on the same slide, right? Neuroception. So you've probably heard of this because of the popularity of the vagus nerve and the polyvagal theory. So this is Stephen Porges, he coined the term neuroception. So what this means very simply is that I am scanning the room for safety. We are doing it all the time. A lady who came to my class, who was a powerhouse, she said, Lorna, we spend our whole life, the survivors, right? Don't pander to them. They'll know you're pandering to them. Don't wrap them in cotton wool. She said, we spent a whole life, well, she said, I spent my whole life with my back to the wall. I wouldn't be here if I didn't feel safe. Don't discount the person. She says, I've had people cutting things out of newspapers, too much, keeping us safe. People know how to keep safe, but very much, how can you increase that neuroception? Arms out to the side, stand up, do a 360, let them move. This is where the choice comes in. It's very important, very important. And again, that take an effective action to be moving in the room, creating rhythms. What I find is, especially this is why COVID, another reason why it was so awful for dysregulation, is that in a yoga space or these spaces, you don't have to speak. If you're working, especially in some of the groups, you have to go and get your stuff out and it's all triggering. But when we move together, on mirror neurons start connecting, which means, oh, so if we all do this, you know, we can all do this together, that when we move, we connect, we balance, it impacts our nervous systems. So anything we can do to bring connection and regulation is very important. And I know we're sort of running tight on time now. There's just some bits on this. I'm going to give you some quick threads. And there's one, I've got a couple of examples that I want to share with you. So I had a new client recently, and she's actually a holistic therapist, and she had been triggered because she went to see a healer, a shamanic healer. And don't get me wrong with the breath, it's powerful as hell, right? It is powerful. And the shamanic healer was going to cure her mental health issues. And the shamanic healer had given her this breath to do. So there was a lot of, the client was nearly sectioned, and she was triggered, all of her flashbacks were triggered. And this is why we have to be very careful with the breath. And this is where we need the science, we need the trauma theory here to keep people safe. Because actually in our upper lungs, that's where more of the sympathetic nervous system endings are. If you think, if you panic, gets the heart pumping so I can run away from the dinosaur. So this had actually really triggered her. And also, again, with the breath, I just need to really block off the breath for you so you hear how powerful it is. If you don't know, if you do know, then you know, so be gentle with it. I was working with the group, with a charity called Changing Lives, and luckily I had built a relationship because they took me for quite a few sessions. And one of the ladies, it was amazing what she said. She said, I've been triggered when you're talking about the breath. So in the pure trauma sensitive yoga, you don't mention breath. So maybe you don't even mention the breath, depending on who you're working with. She said, because, and I get this, if you've ever smoked a joint or taken drugs, that when you take drugs, it's all about inhale, hold, get as high as you can, and then slowly exhale. So that was a real gift for me, for her to share that with me, and then how I am then able to give choice around the breath. So either not noticing it, or if you like, this may be useful, but giving them choice around the breath as well. So it's not just the movement. So you may choose to not mention the breath. Yeah, that was really interesting for me. Really, really interesting, especially with my work in recovery. And there's lots of people now who are integrating this into the work. You've got sort of the old dogs is the wrong term, but they've been around a while, you know, the books are out and they haven't got that long left, to be honest. But you've got people like Peter Levine, Pat Ogden, obviously Basil Danzigel, Stephen Porges. They're standing on the shoulders like we are of Gestalt. Someone's a Gestalt therapist, someone said earlier. Fritz and Laura Perls, William Reich, Freud, the body. There's a legacy going on here, and it's never been so popular now. Babette Rothschild, Gabor Mate, Nick Totten, Alison Priestman. Please dip into this, into the theory. Again, knowing it's not for everyone, but there's never been a better time for you to follow your threads and get interested in this. Now, let me just, gosh, hang on, bear with me. And
I'm a body psychotherapist, and I'm one of the people who's working with body and trauma and integrating mind-body, which has been so important in the trauma field. But sometimes you can't work with people with body.
There you go. That's Babette saying you can't work with all people in the body, and she's absolutely right. So we're going to wrap up in a minute. I just want to share something with you that often therapists and yoga teachers are scared to talk about neuroscience and the fact that when we breathe, when we inhale and when we exhale for longer, whether it's inhale for 4, exhale for 6, whatever feels comfortable, and we just slowing it down, I'm encouraging you to start to say to people, because it impacts our nervous system, right? When we're feeling anxious, everyone talks about kids. I work with kids, right? Talking about anxiety, slowing down that breath. So even if you've got a hot chocolate, inhale, exhale. It's going to reduce our anxiety, right? Because it's going to impact our nervous system. We don't have enough time to go into this in great detail. You'll find out, I'll send you stuff. I'll send you bits on this, and I'll do other workshops around this. But I want to just show you this video that is beautiful. And this is working with children. Some of you will already know this book, especially if you work with children. that's a wonderful book. Educating children about the nervous system, whether it's sympathetic, high, COVID, chased by the bull, shout, help, fight or flight. Start to speak, integrate this into your classes. That's anxiety, it's higher. We can move if we're frozen, right? How can we begin to slowly move so we can come into our window of tolerance? Yeah. And again, people wouldn't come back unless they felt it themselves. I'll send this to you, the window of tolerance. I'm sure you all know about it, but when we inhale, and it's that longer exhalation, we move from hyper arousal into a window of tolerance. If we're depressed, how can we energize? Yoga teachers, you'll know the energizing breaths, and movements, and the lower breaths. Hyper arousal, we need to focus on longer exhalations. And just to wrap up, I need you to hear that you are potent enough. There's so much around having to do so much, but actually the more regulated you are, and you're in your window of tolerance, the less you have to do, because actually the autonomic nervous system is not simply autonomous, but it's regulated through interaction with others. So how are you going to keep yourself well? How are you going to find your middle, your center? What self-care are you doing to look after your nervous system? If you've been working with clients who are hyper aroused, how are you going to regulate yourself? Okay. And I just want to jump over some of this because I know we're short on time, because I wanted to keep it all quite practical. And I just really wanted to encourage you to integrate it, do it, take a risk. I'd love to hear how it goes. Let me know how it goes. If you'd like to learn more and have more resources, feel free to get in touch. So there's just some quotes here. I work with this lady and she says, it helped. She'd never done yoga before. She was 71. At the age of 71, I didn't know if I was past yoga, but I found it wonderful. I'm looking forward to my next session. These are people in recovery. The yoga session was great, very relaxing, soothing and calming. The sessions are encouraging and helpful. Yeah, so people know it's going to help their mental health, and it's how you're in a position to take this to them in a really safe way. I'm going to send you takeaways for both mental health professionals and yoga teachers. So I'll send you all of that, and we're going to just step away. I'm going to ask you to, let's just take a breath, because I know I've galloped through it all, and Zena's just going to help us wrap up for the day and say goodbye.
Thank you, Lorna. I mean, there is, I've done this so many times now. There's so much information there, and you went through so much information, and then there's loads more information going to be sent to you. And every time I do this, something new stands out to me, actually. So I'd be really interested to hear what has stood out for you today. For me, the new thing today, I don't know why it just clicked in today, was the idea of that maybe we would, as a therapist, explain, say if we were feeling something, you know, that noticing, I notice. And it really reminded me that, I have trauma-informed ADHD coaching. That's exactly what my coach does. And it really grounds me in a way that nothing else has. So yeah, that's what stood out for me today. And if anyone would like to, either in the comments or through take your mic off and just say so.
I feel like we must have just started this workshop and it's over. So I'm feeling slightly bereft, because I've really thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it, and I just feel that there's just so much to learn. And so picking one thing out is really difficult. I think really there's the slowness and the gentleness, which is a journey I'm on myself, because I've always tripped myself up. I always get my own way. So that's part of my learning, and sort of stepping back, and gentle and slow really is the essence of what I'm taking today. And I'm certainly going to just keep studying this, because it just feels like something has really opened up for me. So it's just been a really great morning. I wish I could stay longer. I wish there was more. So thank you. It's been great, Stina and Lorna and everyone. Thank you.
And maybe I can say, so thank you very much. So it's very useful and very good information that I learned today, because I kind of self-studied myself, but only I know from my perspective. So it's good to know, like every person has different response in regard to all action. This is really good to know, because from your experience, like have a lot of trauma-informed yoga class, so then I can hear so many story behind, and people who has sometimes addiction or abuse or something. So all different reaction in regard to even one breath, has everybody say react differently. So it's really good to know today, and I'm very grateful today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So also I want to say something. I miss more 3-4 hours with you. It looked like very shortly. And I'm very grateful that I know directly from the yoga trauma made instructor. I can hear the information, the knowledge, and not just by reading, just to hear from your mouth and from your experience. And I'm very grateful and have a deep interest to learn more after this this workshop. So thank you very much, Lorna.
I think the pace has been really good. I know we've covered a lot, but I really like that we could move around, that we had some breaks. It makes me think about, because I always talk about pace with clients all the time, bang on about it left, right and centre. And I just think it's kind of the offering choice and going at the client's pace, the person's pace, is just really important. And I think this has been very gentle. The kind of not just the words, but the kind of I don't know how to explain it, but just the general ethos of being gentle, treating each person as an individual is really good. Not making any assumptions about your person, with your trauma person in front of you.
It's great, Sarah. Thank you.
I feel more confident now to introduce some simple movements, really. It doesn't even have to be yoga. I think I work a lot with men, and I think they might be a bit just put off by the word.
Yes.
So just to call it movement, maybe.
Or just do it. Yeah, great.
And yeah, I feel with the language now, I've got some insight as to what to do and what not to do. So that's really useful. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Duncan.
So there's more in the chat there as well, people, if you have access to the chat, responding to that question.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for that, everybody. And I want to really just ask you to hold in mind the person that you thought of at the beginning, if something came up for you, and also what your body needs to do for the rest of the day. It's Saturday. What do you need to do to go and move? And I'm really encouraging you to start it, integrate it, get curious, so you can start to work with in therapy, or if you're working in groups, to to go for it. And it's been a wonderful group. I've actually edited as we've gone to make it a lot more practical for you, because I could hear they were the tools that you wanted. So yeah, good luck, and thank you all for being here. And if we can just give Zena a bit of a round of applause, if you can on audio and give her a round of applause. Thank you, Zena. Great job. Great job. And have a wonderful weekend, everybody. I would, like I said, I'd love to get you on the YouTube, the Mind Movement, and I put other workshops out. I'm focusing a lot on fascia at the minute and movement and where that's held in the body. So you'll find stuff on that. There's one next week, but you won't want to come next week if you're here this week. And yeah, stay in touch. I'd love to hear how you get on, and have a lovely weekend, everybody. So bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.